emergency?
Yes, somebody broke into my house.
Are they there right now?
No, my wife's really hurt. She's bleeding.
At 4:02 a.m., 911 takes in a call from Bill New. His wife Phyllis has been shot once in the head at close range.
Just give me a rough estimate how long you were gone. 30 minutes?
Maybe 30 minutes.
The reporting party, who was the husband, had supposedly left his house to get his wife some medication. And when he returned to his home, he found that someone had broken into his home and murdered his wife during the 30 minutes that he was gone. She was found deceased, lying in her bed, a close gunshot wound to the back of her head. It appeared that she had been murdered in her bed as she slept.
The detective follows up with paramedics, who had responded to the scene 4 minutes after Mr. New's 911 call.
Arrived on scene, declared Phyllis New deceased at the home, and noticed that she already showed signs of lividity and rigor mortis.
It generally takes a couple hours to be very visible. So that it could be seen at 4 in the morning suggested that she'd been dead, a couple hours.
According to Mr. New, however, his wife was killed by an intruder approximately 30 minutes before paramedics arrived. Detective Gardner finds time of death isn't the only inconsistency at the crime scene.
Present inside the home was a very large freestanding jewelry box. It had 8 drawers total and then 2 vertical drawers on the side. And basically only 3 of those drawers had been disturbed, and the very top ones, the rest were completely full of jewelry, and that appeared very unusual. My gut telling me that there were some serious problems from looking at that home, that it did not appear to be a residential burglary/murder. The shot basically appeared to be an execution-style shot. That's something you don't see normally in a home invasion.
We knew at that point he was the only person that was in the house with her at the time that or around the time that she died. So he's the one we need to start with.
I said, do you want me to get you an Imatrax? And she said, no, I've taken too many of those. I need something else. And I said, do you want me to go to the store? And she said, yes.
New says he doesn't know what time Phyllis woke him up or what time he returned home.
He said that it probably took him, he was guessing about 15 minutes to get there, maybe as much as 15 minutes in the store, he wasn't sure, and then maybe another 15 minutes to get home. That's why I said we're looking at a time frame of maybe half hour to an outside of 45 minutes that he was gone.
And I flipped the light switch on in the hall, and the dresser drawers were open. So I moved a little quicker, and she was on her side. I put my hand on her arm, and I saw the blood on the pillow. I just came unglued.
He exited the room and then proceeded to use the phone in the other room. Never gave her first aid, even when the dispatcher came on the line and offered assistance, check her. He didn't check her, never went back into that room.
She had called apparently the agency that hired him, the temp agency, and they had never heard of him. So then she confronted him and told him that she was going to follow him to work the next morning, and he'd better produce a pay stub or a time card where she had it.
10 hours after confronting her husband, Phyllis New was dead.
So yesterday afternoon, you went to the temp agency.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, have you worked for them at all? Have you done jobs for them?
No.
That she was a little upset about him not working, and he had possibly been lying about having jobs when he didn't.
Bill, what happened when you got home and you talked about that?
I told her that I wasn't working, and she got upset and she cried. She doesn't get loud or anything like that. And
what else happened? What happened, Bill?
Nothing happened. We talked and we talked and we talked.
And she told you that she wasn't going to put up with that anymore, didn't she?
No, she said that she was going to see that I got some help.
Did something go wrong in that house last night? And did you wind up doing something that you would never dream of doing in a million years? Did something happen? Did you hurt Phyllis, Bill?
No. No. No, I told you the only thing that I didn't tell you was about temp agency. Nobody broke into your house. You need to tell us what happened. What do you mean nobody broke into my house? Why don't you tell me what happened between you and Phyllis last night? I told you what happened.
Nancy Friend has known Phyllis New for 16 years. A week after the murder, Friend remembers a conversation she and Phyllis had years earlier about Bill New.
She says his first wife died when she was 8 months pregnant. And that kind of threw me, and I said, well, what happened? She goes, well, Bill was cleaning a gun. It fell and discharged and hit her across the room. And the hair on my arm stood up. I got goosebumps all over my whole body thinking, you know, this didn't sound right.
Nancy phones San Diego detectives and tells them her story.
I said, my name's Nancy Friend. I've known Phyllis a number of years, and you do know that he killed his first wife. There was dead silence on the other end of the phone, and the first thing he said to me was, how do you know this? I said, well, Phyllis told me.
San Diego County Sheriff's Detective Pat Gardner reviews Bill New's police interview.
My first wife passed away, and my second wife, we got divorced.
What was your first wife's name?
Her name was Samsuri Tasuri. She was from Thailand. I met her when I was overseas.
Oh my gosh. What was the cause, if you don't mind me asking?
It was an automobile accident.
Oh gosh.
Just hours after the murder, Bill New had told police his first wife died in an automobile accident, a statement that now appears to be a lie.
Then I also received additional information that she died from a supposable accidental shooting. Did any of that information ever get brought up to you?
An accidental shooting? No, absolutely not. He was very clear that this was an automobile accident, nothing more.
What was your first wife's name, sir?
Her name was Somsuri, and she passed away in an accident.
What type of accident was that, sir?
I really don't want to go into all that. I really don't. I'm just beside myself here.
You can't tell me what type of accident it was?
No, I don't want to talk about that.
I was told that the accident was an auto accident, and then I was also told that the accident was a accidental shooting accident. Can you just let me at least know that?
Okay. It was an accidental shooting, but my mom and dad decided that they were going to just tell everybody that it was an auto accident. I was cleaning a rifle, and I dropped it, and I grabbed it when it fell, and it went off, and she was struck.
What type of weapon, what type of rifle was that?
I don't remember.
Oh my gosh, where did it hit her at?
I don't know that.
You don't know where she was struck at?
No.
Well, it's pretty unusual that if you would shoot your wife, you wouldn't know the facts of the shooting. I mean, this is your wife that you supposedly had shot, and so that seems suspicious.
Detectives find 26 old negatives from the Samsuri New crime scene. They are the only remaining pieces of evidence in the case.
I look at this, and I saw that the blood spatter did not match with the trajectory of the bullet. Blood spatter had traveled to the back of the wall, which was not consistent with the bullet path. The bullet path had gone back out this way, and in fact, everything was this way.
According to Dillon, the photos show that Samsuri New could not have been shot the way Mr. New explained.
Based on my experience in homicide, and having spent so much time there, I thought and felt that this was in fact a murder. I just did not feel comfortable saying this was a death investigation.
It'd be awful hard to drop this gun and get your finger in the trigger guard and put pressure on it. Because you need not only for it to get in, but it's got to also fire the weapon. On top of that, if he's sitting down and the weapon slips from him, the bullet would have to have traveled in an upward direction to her head. However, the bullet, after entering the head and exiting the face, then went into the back of the couch and into the wall behind it in a downward trajectory. So actually, the overall trajectory of the bullet was into the head, through the face, through the back of the couch, into the wall, which is not consistent with his account where the bullet would have had to have been going upward. It could not have occurred the way he said it did.
In light of Dr. DeMaio's findings, Assistant DAs Kurt Meckles and Jill Lindberg review both of Detective Gardner's cases.
I mean, he stood to gain, and ultimately his son did get $800,000 in life insurance from the 2004 murder of Phyllis. And back in 1973, he collected $15,000, which doesn't sound like a lot now, but if you use present value of money, that was more than $66,000 to a young man back in 1973.
A lot of money back then.
Right.
In April of 2005, Bill New is charged with the murder of Samsri New and the murder of Phyllis New. The district attorney's office decides to try both cases together.
You can't separate these two cases. Even if San Bernardino had tried the 1973 case and we tried the 2004 case down here in San Diego, the evidence would have been cross-admissible.
Bill New's trial opens in February of 2006. After a month of testimony, he is found guilty of murdering both of his wives, one in 2004, the other 31 years earlier.
Mr. New, it is the judgment of this court that probation be denied in this case, of course.
4 weeks after the verdict, Bill New is sentenced.
And I'm not exactly sure even how to describe this sentence when it gets down to the total, but it is life plus 5 years and a consecutive term of life without the possibility of parole plus 25 years to life.